Hello again, everyone. This is Tom Rowe, Product Evangelist for CenterStack. Welcome to another CenterStack tutorial. Today I'm going to look at the web portal, and we have a guide for that. If you go to centerstack.com/documentation, you'll see that we have a web portal guide under user documentation. And if you go in there, you can see that there's a lot of content here, like browser requirements, getting started, scope of users. This is particularly of interest, the scope of users, because depending on your credentials, when you log into the web portal, you get different options. So I'm going to demonstrate that right now. Okay. So I'm going to log into CenterStack first of all as the CenterStack administrator. This is the root admin for the CenterStack server. And when the root admin logs in, the cluster administrator, they see this layout for the web portal, which gives them access to cluster info, branding, default group policy. This is policies that apply to all of the tenants. Worker nodes configuration, cluster admin. Great place to go ahead and set up other admins that you might want to take over the administrative activities of the cluster. We'll cancel that. We can see the tenants that we've created. If you click on the, let me do that again, it happened a little fast. If you click on the tenant text up here, the link, it takes you to another way of looking at your tenants. And each of these little hamburger menus allow you to access various functions for that tenant. For instance, if I go to Acme and I click Manage Tenant, then I'm looking at the Acme tenant, and I can control various options for that tenant in particular. Let's go back to the tenant manager, and we'll go back to the dashboard. You get these reports for the activity that's going on in your CenterStack server. You get a system diagnostic report, which is a great way to just see the health of your system. We can see that things that are not enabled and things that are enabled, and the things that are working as expected. So for instance, I have a server agent computer that has not been connected for more than an hour. This lets me know that kind of information. You click here if you want to refresh the info, the data. So if we click this hamburger menu here, it opens this side menu, and it lets me look at various cluster-wide operations, such as these reports are being pulled from a report section, and if I use this menu here, I can access the various reports for each of these categories. If I go to cluster branding, then I can set up the branding for the cluster. And this gives me control over the branding for the various categories. For instance, the Android client. It says here you could schedule branding tests from your partner account. So we can open that up. Log into our partner account. We can open the side menu and go to branding. Then we can choose, where is it? Branding tasks. And we can add a branding test such as Android branding. And here we can enter all of the information necessary to start that process. Okay, let's go back to the dashboard. we also have access to Cluster Control Panel. And just so you know, there's sometimes there's more than one way to get to a function. So we could we can go to Cluster Control Panel here, and we can also get to Cluster Control Panel there. Now under here there's a lot of functions. Now one thing that you'll see that is dramatically different when you're logged in as a cluster manager versus being logged in as a tenant manager is that this first thing that you see changes fairly dramatically. So now I'm going to log out as CS, log back in as tenant. Now, first of all, the tenant manager gets to see the file browser, and tenant manager has access to his own dashboard. This dashboard is limited to the tenant and allows him to control things such as team folders, user manager, group policy, tenant branding reports, and control panel for the tenant. You see there's less options here, and they are specific to this tenant. So tenant manager still gets a lot of control, and there's certainly a lot of things that can be looked at here. If you want to see more about how to set these controls and settings, go to the back to the documentations page, and then you'll want to go to the administration guide, and then we have tenant administration as a subsection there. Okay, so now I'm going to log out as the tenant admin and log back in as a typical user. Now for the typical user, it looks very similar to the tenant admin, but when I click this settings, when I click into what would normally get me to the dashboard, now I only get to edit the settings for this user. And I can click this folder to go back to the file browser. Everything else is fairly similar. You can change the way that you're looking at the files. For instance, I can pull down this setting here. I could show or hide the info panel on the side. This gives me a list of activities that have happened recently and a sharing and collaboration list. So if I've created any shares or collaboration events, then they will show up here, and I can turn them off or edit them. I can also activate this using this icon here. I can change the way I'm looking at things. For instance, I can go into my documents folder and I can alter the size of my thumbnails. I can also use this list view. This can be very handy when you're looking at folders to see like in this column here, there'll be a versioning information. For instance, if I go into the team folder, you can see that there's a Word file, doc file here that has 4 versions. If I click that, I can get all of the versions and I can see who updated them. I can also download previous versions. Okay, what else have we got here? If I have deleted files, I can show the deleted files by clicking this icon, and I can undo the delete on any files that have been deleted here. You can use this breadcrumb links here to get back to where you were before, and we can switch back to icon view. One more while I'm here. This gives you the tree view in the side here so that you can bounce around that way, which can sometimes make it easier to get around, as you can see. And so that's kind of handy. Also, if there's been updates done by other users in your folders, for instance, if you're in the team folder and someone says, I've updated the document and you're not seeing the update, then you can do a refresh, and usually that will sync everything up. So I hope that was helpful for you. And once again, this is Tom Rowe, Product Evangelist for CenterStack, and I'll see you in the next tutorial. Bye-bye.